Hey champions, are you tired of applying for position after position just to find out that it's a fake online job or it's a scam? If so, this video is for you because I'm going to be sharing with you my top tips on how to avoid fake online posted jobs. You see, as an entrepreneur, there's a couple of things that I know that I need to do as a business owner to look legitimate. And I want to share some things with you guys to help you that are in the job seeking mode to help you avoid time wasted on applying for jobs and things like that because these were things I wish I knew way back in the day. But you might not know these things unless you're a business owner, okay? And so, tip number one that I have for you is always check a job post or a position post for grammar and punctuation errors. You see, if there's a lot of different punctuation or grammar errors or misspellings and things like that, a lot of the times these social media platforms they do their best to actually weed companies out that don't have good grammar. Sometimes they still get through though. And so if you're seeing a lot of grammar or misspellings or punctuation errors and just weird spots, then there's chances that that company is not a legitimate company or that they just don't have good copywriters because as business owners we spend money to make sure that things are grammatically correct and that they look well polished and things like that, okay? And so, tip number two that I have for you is do they have a website? You see, any reputable company is going to have a website with a domain, which is the URL of a company inside of it. Okay, that's really, really important. And so, if it has like a really long URL, there's very high chances that that is something that could be not legitimate and it could be wasting your time applying for a position with just a weird looking URL or something like that. And so I always look at the domains and make sure that it's actually to a company that that is going towards because you have to pay money to have an actual domain to register a domain. So that's going to help you guys as you look at these businesses. Does their domain match the company name? Okay. Tip number three, do they have a brick and mortar location? You see, most traditional business owners, they're going to have a real brick and mortar store or a location, right? And if not, then I would be checking on Google Maps or something so that you know that it's an actual brick and mortar business and that you could see the actual brick and mortar location of where they say their place of business is, okay? And so that's really, really important. You want to make sure that there's some kind of presence for a business, unless there could be some though that are truly virtual positions that are really, really virtual. And so you might not be able to find some like that. But most of the time, businesses are going to have a physical address because they have to say where to send their mail if the government needs to get a hold of them and things like that. Okay. And so tip number four is do they have a company email? Okay. And so sometimes when they don't have this, it just means it's a new startup, but it doesn't look that professional. You see, if you were applying to work at, let's say, for example, Bass Pro, I love to fish, okay? And so if you're applying at Bass Pro, and if the replying email to a query that you've reached out to them on is like bassproshop@gmail.com, that's a big red flag right there, okay? Versus Joe might be working in the HR department. What would be normal is an email response from a Joe at bassproshop.com. Okay, that's a good example of it because when you create a business email, you can't just create a business email out of thin air. You actually have to buy and own the domain. That's why having a website is important, but also you could link emails to that domain as well too. Okay, so that's a really, really important thing. And those are some important things. But like I said, sometimes it's just a new company. Sometimes they do have to use a Gmail because there's a lot of costs to business and stuff like that. And so I would just be aware of things like that. Okay. And so tip number five that I have for you is do they have an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp? That's a really, really big thing right there is you want to make sure that these business entities and these companies where their address is, you want to check that state's corporation commission department or the secretary of state. Like for example, if you own a business and you're in California, you could actually look up the secretary of state's website, the California government's website, and look up a business. You could type in and search and find a business by their name, and it's going to tell you their address, who owns it. It's going to tell you contact information for a company, okay? And so if you're in like Arizona, right, it might be a corporations commission department. So I would just double check with your state and just Google your state, right? Whatever state you're in, corporation commission department, and look up the business that you're applying for. And just 1 minute of searching like that can save you a lot of time, because a real business is actually going to have to file articles of an organization or incorporate their company, which is what an LLC, S Corp, or a C Corp is. Okay. And so that one's really, really important, because they have to, they're required by law to share what they call their NAP, the company name, address, and phone number on those documents as well. And so it'll show if that business is based out of someone's house. It'll show you actually if that business is based out of an actual brick and mortar location. Okay. And so that's really, really an important one that can help you a lot. Okay. Number six, okay, is are they willing to meet with you on Zoom, right, or in person, or are they only trying to meet with you through text? Okay. And so if someone's willing to meet on Zoom and have their camera on, or they're willing to meet in person, that's always the most positive sign, by the way. Okay. If someone's willing to do that, and things like that, because if they're just trying to get you through text or over the phone to accept an application, that's a little bit unprofessional. That's kind of weird. And so always be cautious of that. Okay. Number seven is, do they offer you a position immediately when they meet you for the first time ever right away? Okay. And so that's either usually a really desperate business owner, right? Or it could potentially be a fake job or a scam or something like that. Okay. Business owners and HR departments, they have processes for going through their system, so that that way they can kind of weed out applicants who aren't serious, who might not be a good fit. And so they're going to have a process, right? You might have multiple interviews, right? And I know that could be a little bit frustrating, right, sometimes when you have a couple of interviews, but that also protects you too, so that that way you can make sure that they're not super needy, they're not super desperate, right, and things like that. And most likely it is a better thing when a company has a process, or they have videos or tutorials or things that you need to do, or videos you need to record, or coming in for an interview and things like that. Okay. Very, very important to do that. Okay. And so the other thing too that's kind of a part of that is, do they have multiple steps? Sometimes you have to apply, sometimes you have to watch information, sometimes you have to meet for a Zoom, right? And if they have multiple steps, then that's a really, really good sign. Okay. And so the last tip that I have for you is, just go by your gut. Usually your gut deep down inside, like, yeah, of course, right, in an online world, things are going to look suspicious a little bit in the beginning. But if there's a lot of information out there, I always look for businesses to partner with and stuff like that when they have a lot of information, right? If it's really hard to find information about a company CEO, a founder, right, their HR processes and things like that, that's a really big red flag. And so just go by your gut, and the information should present itself to show you if it's real or if it's a scam. So that way you're not wasting any time away from your loved ones. So hope that helps, champions, and we will see you on the other side.